everyone, welcome back to the Cozy Soul Knitting Podcast. My name is Saoirse and this is episode 4, I believe, of my little knitting video podcast. And of course, in this podcast, I'm going to be talking about what I've been knitting on, things I've finished, whips, acquisitions, future plans, all those good things. So I think I'm actually a little behind for this episode. I think I was supposed to film this last weekend. And when I say supposed to, I was intending to film every 2 weeks to kind of try to keep a little bit of a routine going with these videos. And I think I was supposed to film last weekend and I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I think I forgot how many weeks it had been, and I only have one finished object, so I was like, I think maybe it just didn't feel like it was long enough, and then I didn't have enough to talk about maybe. Last weekend was kind of a chill weekend. I don't think I really did a whole lot, which was nice because I think the weekend before that was the weekend I went up to Bellingham, Washington. So I'm in the Seattle area. But I have some friends in Bellingham, went to school in Bellingham for university and all of that. So went back up there like 2 weekends ago for a friend's birthday, and for some reason that feels like it was such a long time ago, and like I should have more done, but I was actually working on one of the items, one of my projects on the way up to Bellingham. So just feels like I should have more, but also it's fine. So the other thing I want to mention is I do have a lot of acquisitions this time around. I'm a huge hypocrite. I said I wasn't going to buy any more needle sets, and I did. You can judge me if you want to. I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to buy any more. I don't need any more. And yet I have some that I acquired in the past few weeks, and I have a lot of yarn to talk about. So if you are someone who is trying to not spend so much on knitting related things and you want to skip the acquisition section, by all means, please do what's best for you. I too will be going on, what is it called, a yarn diet, a little bit of a no-buy. I have some other things that I'm trying to use my money for, which we'll talk about at the end. And until that is done, I would like to not buy any more yarn. So hopefully the next couple of podcast episodes, there won't be any acquisitions. So fingers crossed that I won't be a hypocrite again, but it's fine. Let's get into finished objects, which I only have one. So do I need to give an intro to this at all? I believe the past 2 episodes I've been working on these, maybe, and they are my vanilla socks, and they're looking a little odd right now because I blocked them, and then I wore them, and I think I wore them, one time I wore them just like right before bed. I kind of, because they just like, they finally dry, and so I put them on right before bed. The next day I had to wear them, and so they're kind of weirdly stretched out, I feel like, but I just dropped the other one, but they were too big for me, so I'm like, how did they get stretched out? I don't know, but it's interesting. So kind of lost their nice shape that they had after blocking. So I don't know if you guys, if anybody watching is an avid sock knitter or just knows this, what do you do when you wash your socks? Do you block them again? I don't know if you're supposed to like re-block them every time or what. What do you do? Or does it depend on the yarn? Like, let me know your tips and tricks for sock care, I guess. Cause it just kind of looks like it's fine, and they're still wearable. It just looks kind of sad, like after, like I know what it looks like when it was freshly blocked, and now it's like, it just looks kind of stretched out. But weirdly, again, they're too big for me, so I'm like, how did that happen? I don't know. So, and when I say they're too big for me, I knit them a little too long, And then the size small that I did, like circumference-wise, was a little too small around my foot and around my ankle, but then the calves, or like the part up here, the leg of the sock was a little too small because I'm very petite. I'm 5 feet tall, just FYI to give you perspective. And so I think on an average-sized human being, the length, you know, where your calf kind of starts, where like the calf muscle starts and it kind of gets a little wider, that on me happens earlier. And so where this is supposed to hit like a normal human being is where like probably before maybe the calf gets a little bit wider. But on me, it kind of hits right where my calf starts to get bigger. And so it doesn't fit very well up here. But I don't ever really wear socks up like that. I usually roll them down anyways, to keep my ankles extra warm, and yeah, that's just how I generally wear socks. Because they've never fitted me correctly no matter where I get them from. These socks fit how socks normally fit me. They're always a little too big, always kind of a little disproportionate to my structure, I guess. I don't know. So I'm actually really happy with how they turned out. One sock is bigger than the other, both in the length and the circumference of it, because my tension loosened up quite a bit on the second sock, because I think I just felt more comfortable knitting it, and so it's a little bit bigger, and that's fine. I don't really care. I think I do have one foot that is bigger anyways, so I'll just wear it on that foot, and I think it'll be fine. I think it's my right foot that's a little bit bigger. So it's perfect. And before I forget, this pattern that I used is the Vanilla Sock pattern by Crazy Sock Lady. I used her magic loop. So I bought the pattern for 9-inch circulars when I was trying, and if you watch my previous episodes, you know that did not work out well for me. I'm not going to try to knit socks in 9 circulars ever again. That was insane. Anyway, so then instead of, I probably will at some point buy the written pattern for Magic Loop, maybe to support Crazy Sock Lady, or maybe to just have it for reference when I need it, or maybe a little bit of both. But I was using her YouTube tutorial to kind of translate the pattern that I had bought to the one with Magic Loop. And then the yarn that I used is from Knit Picks. It's their Muse fingering in the colorway Thrill, and I really liked that. It's got blues, it's mostly purple, but it's got blues, a little bit of like, you know, pinks, and like a little bit of red in there as well. It's really, really fun, variegated colorway. I really enjoyed working with it. And I actually bought 3 hanks of this yarn, realizing that I was basing it off of the like overall yardage that the pattern says, which I think includes the largest size and probably a larger foot size, like length that you would be knitting the foot for. And since I have extremely small feet, I was nowhere near the total yardage that the pattern states. So I did not need to buy 3 hanks. Originally my plan was I was going to knit up a pair of these just with this yarn, and then I was going to, because I bought another colorway of the same yarn, and I was going to knit a pair of in each colorway, and I was going to take the leftovers and I was going to knit a pair, maybe 2 pairs depending on how much yarn I had, where the heel and the toe and the cuff of the leg were in the opposite colorway, if that makes sense. And yeah, I didn't even finish a whole hank for 1 pair. So I have way more yarn than I needed. So I will be making a lot of socks. I think I'm gonna make another pair of these in the same colorway for my mom. And she has slightly bigger feet than me, but not by too much, so that should work out, and I should still be able to kind of do my original plan as well, I think. We'll see. But yeah, these socks, man, these socks have been through it with me. I feel like I've been knitting on them for quite a few weeks, maybe even a month, with all of the, starting the first sock with the 9-inch circulars, which I still have. It's still on my 9-inch circulars, and I haven't frogged it yet because I was just like looking at it compared to like what it looked like on Magic Loop, and I was like just laughing at how awful it looked on 9-inch circulars and how tight my tension was, and the construction was messed up. It was just, it was like so ugly, and I loved just like looking at the two of them and seeing the difference. Anyway, so it's been a while that I've been working on this project, and it was kind of funny because it's been that project where I've been bringing it with me pretty much everywhere I go, because it was just a really easy, especially when you're working on the leg and the foot of the sock, and you've done, you're kind of in between the heel part of it. It's just such an easy thing to work on. And so I brought it to Bellingham with me, and I was thinking, like, I don't knit in the car, usually because I'm driving, but even when I'm not the one driving, I don't knit in the car because I get car sick. So I used to be able to do all the things in the car. Like on road trips, I would read, I would play Pokemon on my Game Boy. I would do all the things. And then when I started driving, I think, was when I had that shift where I could no longer, like, I had to look at the road, otherwise I would get car sick. And I think it's because when I learned how to drive and I got to be a little bit more experienced with driving, I stopped trusting other drivers. So I wasn't planning on, when we were driving up to Bellingham, my friend was driving, so I wasn't planning on bringing my knitting to knit in the car. I was thinking, like, well, what if, we're going to my friend's party, like, we're, 29 and 30-year-olds mostly, like, what if we're, it's like 11 o'clock, we're tired, we all go to bed, like adults, at a reasonable hour, and what if I can't go to sleep, and so I want to knit for a little bit before I go to bed, or like, what if I wake up earlier than everyone else, and I want to get a little knitting in while I'm waiting for people to get up, like, I don't know. So I just packed my socks to work on, and instead, we got stuck in traffic on I-5 for like an hour and a half. We were stuck in traffic longer than it actually takes to get to Bellingham. So I was knitting on the socks because it was like basically we were just stopped. We would move every so often, and I would just look up while we would move forward, and then I would go back to my knitting. And funnily enough, that was the only knitting that I got in during that weekend, or during the trip up there, because we stayed up until like 2 in the morning, didn't wake up until like 10, and we went to brunch and then went home, and so it was a very eventful day, or night / morning. Brought my knitting for one like situation, maybe, didn't end up using it for that at all, and then ended up getting stuck in traffic, and I got really far on my first sock while I was stuck in traffic. And then I was able to finish the first sock one day while I was working. I work from home, and I usually, if there's like really long meetings where I don't have to have my camera turned on for like the Zoom meeting or whatever, I'll just knit through it because it actually helps me pay more attention because my mind's not wandering, because I have something to do with my hands, keep me occupied and keep my attention. Anyways, this one day at work, everything was on fire. Everything was broken. All of the tools that we normally use weren't accessible, so I couldn't really do anything. And so I was just sitting on this call, kind of paying attention, I was like trying to learn what our process was for when craziness like that happens. But I was just sitting on this call watching other, more senior developers trying to figure out what was causing all of our issues, and I'm just knitting the whole day because I didn't have anything else to do. I just wanted to be there for moral support too. So I'm just knitting, and I finished one of my socks, and then 2 days later we had a similar thing happened where, again, we couldn't really get into the tools that we needed to do our jobs. So I was just sitting in on this call, and I was able to get really far on the second sock that day as well. So yeah, just a lot that I feel like these socks have been through with me. They also went down to Oregon with me when I was down there last. And I feel like the other thing too with these is that I finished my novice sweater and I finished the hat. I think that like I had 2 hats in my last episode, I believe, that I finished. And then all that was on my needles were the socks. Like I didn't have any other projects, and I was trying to like, because I started to panic because I was like, well, sometimes I don't feel like working on my socks. I want to work on a sweater or I want to work on something else, so I need something else to do. And so I started to like try to figure out what, you know, projects I wanted to start. And I had tried, you know, I was gauge swatching, I was trying to figure out yarn and everything, but there was just a period of time where all I really had were these socks to work on. And so they were kind of a monogamous knit for me, because it was all I had to work on, and I don't like that. I like that I was able to finish them, but I was like, I need more things casted on. I don't ever want to just have one project going. Anyways, but those are my first ever pair of socks. Again, by the way, it's the first ever that I've ever knitted. And that makes me really excited. I feel like the only thing left for me to tackle, like I've done a sweater, I've done socks, I've done hats, I've obviously done scarves because those were all I was knitting before I was able to start getting into some other garments and other accessories. But the only thing left, I feel like I need to, or that I want to knit, that I haven't yet, are shawls. I really want to knit some shawls. Like I'm like obsessed. I saw Amy Palco's shawl wall. One of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen in my life, and I would also like to someday have something similar to a shawl wall. I just think, oh, they're so beautiful. And I don't love things super close to my neck, but I feel like a shawl, you know, I feel like there's ways I could wear it or I wouldn't be bothered by it. And it could be just a really nice thing to have while I'm knitting. And I don't know, I really, really want some shawls. So other than that though, I mean, everything else, I'm trying to think. The only other thing is just other types of garments. Like I've knitted a sweater and I'm going to continue to knit sweaters, but I would like to also knit like blouses and tops and camis. And as far as categories go, I think shawls are the only thing left that I haven't, you know, dipped my toe into. So yeah, anyways, so these are done. And again, if you have any sock care tips you'd like to share with me, I would appreciate it, just so I can make sure that I don't mess these up too much, because I think they're going to get a lot of wear, so I need to definitely knit myself more socks, because I love wearing socks. I wear them almost every single day. Even in the summer, I like to wear socks around my house. I don't really like going barefoot, so I'd like to have, you know, I would like to have some socks, just a lot of them on hand. Okay, so that is my only finished object. Again, I think we hit, like, the timing of it is like I finished everything else. This was all that was on my needles for a period of time, and then I casted on a ton of new things, which we're gonna, maybe not a ton, but 3 whips I believe that I have, so we'll talk about those. The first one I want to talk about has been a little bit of a struggle for me, and I have not made very much progress on it. Also, I don't know if I shared this, but I got this cute, super adorable project bag off of Etsy. I love this color green, the kind of like olivey green, or I mean, I think it's more of an olive than an army green. I wouldn't fight somebody on that, but to me it's olive. I will leave the Etsy store linked down below, but it's pretty big, and it's also like a cute kind of crossbody purse type thing too as well. I feel like I could use it for both. I'm gonna try to wind this back up while we chat. So I realized I only had socks, and I was down in Oregon when I realized, like, okay, shoot, like I'm done with everything. I only have socks left. I finished my novice sweater, and I was like, I need to cast on another sweater. Like, I gotta get going. I want, you know, a whole wardrobe full of sweaters. I gotta get started. I've only knit one. And so I had this yarn, not the yarn that I'm currently holding. Let me put this down for a second. So I have this yarn from Knit Picks, is the Upcycle Surrey Alpaca. This is in the colorway Contuda. And I had bought a sweater quantity worth of this, and I decided that I would be knitting the Naima pullover. I think I'm gonna say the designer's the name of the designer wrong. Sorry, my camera stopped recording. But the designer is Ankstrick. I really feel like I'm not saying it right. So apologies. I think I'm saying it in a really American way, and I don't know how to say it. Anywho, so the Naima pullover, that's what I decided that I was going to knit next, and I was going to knit it in this yarn because this is an Aran weight, which I call BS on. I don't believe that anymore. I was gauge swatching and I couldn't not hit gauge with this yarn, and I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm just gonna knit a bigger size and I'll just figure it out, because I think I had too many stitches in my swatch, and so I was just like, I'll just knit a bigger size, it'll be fine. So I tried starting the Naima pullover, and I got, like, first of all, I had to like cast on multiple times because I was just it was not working well for me. And then finally I got it, so you know, I was casted on, it was good to go. And I got like 4 rounds in, and I was just like, no, there's no way, I can't do this with this yarn. This yarn is so fuzzy. Like, let me try to show you. I'm pretty sure I've shown this before. I don't know if the camera's focusing, sorry. But the core of the yarn, I think that's what you call it, it's very thin. And I think it's the fluff that makes it Aran weight, but not really. Like, it doesn't behave like Aran weight yarn. So anyways, I just could not make this work. And I was also using this with my Chao Gu needles, and the stitches were just flying off. It was a nightmare. Like, I was losing stitches. I was, you know, I feel like metal and alpaca, for me at least, do not mix. Just like, this is too soft and the metal has 0 grip. And so I had to frog it, and I tried to frog it and I ended up breaking the yarn, which is fine. I have a lot of this yarn, so it's fine. But it was such a mess, and I was so frustrated. I was just like, don't understand how people can knit with this. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this yarn, but I had to give up on trying to do the Naima pullover, which was my original plan. So then, because I only had my socks to knit on, and I was like, I really want to get started on another project, I don't want to have to wait, I went back to the yarn shop that I go to down there, which is in Cannon Beach. It's called Coastal Yarns. If you're ever in the area, I would definitely recommend. They have Noro, so you get some Noro while you're there. Not whatever that one is that Petite Knit uses for the terrazzo sweater that is always out of stock everywhere. The like Silk Garden Solo something. That one's not there, but they do have Noro, and you already know. If you watched my last podcast, you already know I bought some. Anyways, so while I was there, again, to find some worsted weight yarn, I picked up the Malabrigo Rios yarn, I believe. I have a skein sitting here, I believe. Over there. Yes, here it is. So yeah, this is a little bit of an acquisition, but I bought this Rios yarn. I bought this colorway, I keep wanting to say shade, colorway Reflecting Pool. It's this really beautiful, beautiful blue. I feel like it has like a shine to it too. It's really stunning. And I started the Naima pullover with this, but also with this yarn, I could not hit gauge. I have no idea, but I would have had to go up about I'm estimating about 4 needle sizes to get gauge with this. And the fabric that it would have created would have been so like see-through, I feel like. Such a loose gauge. And when I was looking at the pictures of the pullover, it didn't look like it's that loose of a gauge. And I didn't want this to be see-through. So I'm super confused. Please let me know if you've knitted this. Did you have the same problem? Or did you hit gauge just fine? I don't know if I'm okay. I'm really tempted to get the yarn that the pattern uses. I think it's, I don't want to say it, Bishi Bouche? I don't think I said that right. It's French. I don't speak French. I'm not good at pronouncing things, apparently. Bishi Bouche? Is that, am I even close? Don't tell me. Probably not at all. That brand has whatever, I can't remember. It was like the whatever worsted weight lamb's wool yarn that they have. That was, I'm pretty sure, the yarn that they use. And I literally just heard Inga from Knitting Traditions talk about a different lamb's wool yarn that brand has, and she said that it blooms a lot, or like more than other yarns or something. I can't remember exactly what she was saying. She was talking about like how the way that the fiber is done, it's gonna bloom a lot more. And I was thinking maybe that is why I couldn't get gauge. It was because they were using a yarn that really blooms, and I'm not. The Malabrigo Rios, I'm not to say it doesn't bloom, but my swatch when I blocked it didn't really change. I think I had the same stitch count. So I really want to get my hands on that yarn that they use for this pattern and see if I can use the suggested needles, because I was like, again, I would have had to go up like 4 needle sizes to get gauge, and I'm just like, that's not that's not going to create the fabric that is pictured, and it's definitely not going to create a fabric that I would want for this pullover. And like even this fabric that it's creating is a little too it's a little too loose, I feel. Like I wanted it a little denser. Anyway, so I also went up a size, I believe, that I was originally going to do, because I wanted to make sure it would fit with my gauge being off. So fingers crossed that it'll work out. I'm also going to measure my gauge once I get to the stockinette portion. I am going to like measure my gauge and see if it's changed from when I did the gauge swatch too for some reason. And oh my gosh, I tried so many different needles. I tried my Chalgoos. I tried, these ones are Knit Picks. They're the wooden Knit Picks ones, the shorties. And I tried, I think these are the shorties, pretty sure, yes. I tried, what other ones did I try? I don't exactly remember, but I was trying all of the different needles that I have, trying to figure out if one would give me a better gauge, and it was just, nothing would give me the right gauge for this project. So, and I also tried another yarn too that I had purchased from Purl Soho. I purchased the Hedgerow yarn, which will be featured in my acquisitions, and I also tried to hit gauge with it on that, because I know that Meka from Skeins of Dreamz is using that yarn for her Naima pullover. So I was like, maybe I'll get gauge with that, because she's using it, and I don't think I heard her talk about anything about gauge or anything. So maybe it's the yarn, and I did. So as you can tell, it was very frustrating because I could not hit gauge, and I have no idea why. And I don't want to have to go up that big of a size needle. It just feels weird to have to go up that many sizes. I don't know if that's normal though. Maybe it's normal. Maybe me and whoever designed this pattern have very different intentions. But just from the pictures, it didn't look like the gauge was that loose. So I really have no idea. Anyways, and then I was having all sorts of trouble with the eyelet detailing here. I think I worked it out. I was doing some weird stuff with my yarn overs. They were getting, because you yarn over, I hope I'm not giving away too much about the pattern. I mean, I feel like it's probably pretty obvious. Like there's stitch markers and you yarn over, or you know, somewhere around the stitch markers for the eyelet detailing, but then my yarn overs would go on the wrong side. Like they would get somehow, when I was knitting, they would like get moved over the stitch marker, and so I would kind of like lose track. And I actually I have to change the battery in my camera, but I'm thinking I might actually frog this and start over, because I realized what was happening. Whereas when I first started, my stitches were moving all around the place and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I finally figured it out, that when I was yarn overing, I don't think that's a verb, when I was doing my yarn overs, the stitch marker wasn't staying in the right place. So I think I need to just be a little bit more careful. But obviously you can tell I have not made much progress on it. I think I was just getting a little frustrated with myself and kind of lost my knitting mojo on this. So I honestly might frog this and start over, or I might keep going, because where I messed up, you can't really tell. So I think I might only frog it if I'm really finding that I really messed myself up. But I actually have not reached for this for, I feel like a couple weeks. Like I think I was only working on it for a few days when I first got this yarn, and then I just lost all my knitting mojo on it. But that's okay. I'll pick it back up, and hopefully by my next podcast I'll be able to show you more progress on it, but I don't think I'll have it done soon. I feel like, for some reason, I just feel like it's going to take me a while, which is fine. Let's talk about a little bit more of an exciting project. So while I was down in Oregon, I kept seeing people talking about the Lento and the Let's Lento cowl that Rebecca from the Creabea Knitting Podcast and Amy Palco from the Meaningful Stitch Podcast, they are hosting it, and I was like listening to them talk about it. I was like seeing all these other people joining in that I watch, and I was like, man, I really want to join a cowl. Like, it sounds like so much fun. I feel like I could be a little bit more a part of the knitting community if I joined in a cowl. And so I don't know, for some reason though, when I first heard them announce it, I was like, I'm not experienced enough to do this pattern, so I probably should skip this one and wait for another cowl to come along. But then I kept hearing them talk about it, and I had knitted my I had finished my novice sweater, and so I was like, you know what, I've done a sweater. Maybe it was an easy sweater, maybe this one won't be as easy, or it's a different construction or whatever, but I think I can do it. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. So while I was down in Oregon, I bought some yarn from Purl Soho for my Lento. My Lento. I feel like it's hard to say for some reason. Obviously the pattern is the Lento sweater. It is by, oh shoot. I'll put the pattern designer name on the screen. It's Joanna something, I can't remember. And I know it was part of a Laine publishing magazine, something or other. But you can get the pattern, you know, by itself on Ravelry and probably elsewhere as well. But anyways, so I guess I should hold it the right way. So this is how far I've gotten, and it's kind of hard to see because I'm still knitting on my 16-inch circulars. I could probably definitely switch to a larger size now that I have more stitches, but I've been doing the raglan increases. I'm finished with the short rows, which I'm actually trying to see, I think are back here. Can't remember. I can't remember where they are. But anyways, so this was my first time doing a few different techniques. It was my first time doing the provisional cast on. I did the crochet version of it. I don't like where you crochet a chain and then knit into it. I don't know if that's a normal way to do it or not, but it worked out pretty well. The only issue I had with that was my scrap yarn was really fuzzy, and so when I was knitting into the crochet chain, I actually was splitting the crochet stitches. So when I went to go pull it out, I actually had to cut it out in some parts because I had split the stitch. So it was fine because it was the scrap yarn that I had split, not the actual, you know, knitting that I was doing. So it ended up being okay, but it was just kind of not as easy as it was supposed to be. And then this is my first time too doing the folded neckband, which I was really interesting, holding the 2 needles in one hand, and so essentially you're working with 3 needles. I can't say that I was the biggest fan of that, but it was also kind of cool. I think if I were to cast this on again with this same yarn, I would not be using the Chow needles because the yarn is pretty slippery and these needles do not have any grip on them whatsoever. So I opted to go with the Chow because I was having trouble with the gauge. I think on this one I was 1 stitch off, which maybe isn't that big of a deal. I did go a size up to account for that, just in case. And I figured with the positive ease that it has, it should be fine. And then what else did I do? And then so I chose the metal needles so that I would have a little bit looser of a swatch, or looser of a gauge, sorry. And that, I mean, that's what I got. I was using these needles to get the gauge that gave me 1 less stitch than I was supposed to have. Or 1 more stitch. Sorry, it was 1 more stitch. I had 1 more than I was supposed to. And anyways, so yeah, other than that, I also did short rows for the first time, which wasn't hard. I just followed like the directions. In my head, I was like, oh, this is going to be so hard. And it's definitely something I was like, okay, I really need to focus on this, and I can't be watching TV while I'm doing this because I'm going to mess up. But other than that, it was pretty easy. And then the raglan increases are also new to me. I haven't, the only other sweater I've knitted is the novice sweater, and it's not raglan. So I don't know. I feel like they're turning out pretty well. I'm pretty sure I messed up a couple of times, maybe where I was supposed to increase and I forgot to. I'm nervous that when I get to the end of the raglan increases that I won't have the amount of stitches that I'm supposed to have, but I feel like I could always do another round or 2 of raglan increases to get to the number of stitches I need and call it good. So I don't know, but I'm almost done. I think I have a few more rows of increases left before I'm finished with that part of it. And I don't know, I'm looking at like where I've done the raglan, and looks pretty nice, I feel like. So not too shabby. And oh yeah, the yarn. I keep forgetting. Like, that's the most important part. So the yarn that I'm using is a mix of, I have, oh man, got fuzz everywhere because of this yarn. This is the Tussock yarn from Purl Soho. I can't remember. I believe it is a silk alpaca blend. Let me actually look it up. Oh, just kidding. This is mohair and silk. I don't know why I was thinking alpaca. But it's so soft. I've actually never worked with like full mohair before. This is actually the first time I've ever used a mohair blend. And I don't know, it doesn't feel scratchy like at all, but I don't know what it'll feel like on the skin. I'm like holding it. I don't know. So yeah, this is the first time I'm working with mohair, which is cool, and I like didn't even know it. Anyways, I also originally when I was looking at the pattern on Ravelry, it listed as a fingering weight pattern. I was reading through just the Ravelry listing and not the actual pattern. For some reason when I was doing it, I didn't realize that they were holding a fingering weight yarn with mohair or some other lace weight. I can't remember exactly. For some reason I read it as just them listing 2 different yarns that you could use. And I didn't really know anything about those yarns, so I just kind of assumed they were both fingering weight. And so originally I just bought this because it was listed as fingering weight on Purl Soho's website. I don't really buy that. I think that this is a lace weight, or it performs more as a lace weight. So I'm not really sure. Maybe because of the fluff, it's considered technically a fingering weight, but I don't think it performs like that. So originally, I casted on the stitches for my gauge swatch and I looked at it without even knitting anything and I was like, there's no way. There's no way I will even get close to hitting gauge. Obviously, something is weird here because I was looking at this and I was like, this is not a fingering weight, or at least it's not going to behave like one, so that's not going to work out. And then, so I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, like if I should double strand this or what. And I was just really confused. And so I was like, okay, maybe I won't use this yarn. Maybe I'll have to get something else. So I was kind of sitting on it. And then I happened to be watching, I think I was watching both a Crave episode where Rebecca is talking about her Lento, and she was mentioning that she's holding a fingering weight with mohair, and that got me thinking that maybe I could just get a true fingering weight yarn and then hold it with this. And then someone, I believe, Chelsea from Sunday Knitting Society, I was also watching her talk about her Lento, and I think she was holding some stuff double as well. And it just got me thinking, I was like, I don't think I read the pattern correctly. And so I went back and I looked at it and I was like, oh, this isn't a fingering weight. Like technically, or maybe it is. But they're holding a fingering weight yarn with mohair. So it's not a true fingering weight pattern, because if you add in the lace weight, technically, I feel like it's supposed to be like sport or DK, right? But maybe the yarns that they used, I'm not really sure how they calculated it, so maybe something about the yarns that they used, even though they were adding in the lace weight, maybe it didn't actually add a whole lot. I don't know. But that was my bad. It was my bad. I didn't read the pattern or the listing on Ravelry correctly. So I was like, okay, well, this is not going to work by itself or held double. So I went back to Purl Soho and I was looking, sorry, I almost dropped this. I was looking to try and find a blue that I thought would go well with this blue, and I couldn't quite find anything like that would perfectly match this, but I found this linen quill yarn. This, by the way, sorry, the colorway for this Tussock yarn is Lapis Lazuli, and the colorway for the linen quill is blue. And so I bought more from Purl Soho and got enough to do the Lento with this, and it is knitting up so beautifully, and I feel like it's made such a beautiful blue color. I feel like, yeah, just adding the mohair has really kind of deepened this up a little bit more. So I feel like, yeah, it's perfect. And I'm obsessed. So I really am having fun knitting this up. I feel like it is going quite, sorry, I've got mohair in my nose. This is knitting up quite well, quite quickly, and I think I've made some mistakes, but it's okay, and I don't think you can really tell. I also was worried that it would be extremely see-through, but I don't think that it will end up being too see-through. Probably still something I should wear a shirt underneath, but it's not as see-through as I was originally expecting it to be, and I was a little nervous for that, but now that it's knitted up enough and I can really like see the fabric, I think it'll be good. So I'm so excited for this. I cannot wait to wear it. I feel like I keep saying that. I'm like, I just can't wait to wear it. Like, I'm so excited. And yeah, so it's so beautiful. I think it's gonna look so good. And I think everyone else has already said this, that they're going to be knitting another Lento because they're so quick, and I definitely want to knit another one as well. I'm really inspired. Who is it? I think it's both Amy Palco and Megha. The yarn that they're using, both of theirs that they're working on I really want to knit one like that. I feel like they're both kind of a white or a beige with like speckles, if I recall correctly. And they look so beautiful, and I really want to knit one like that as well. So I definitely am keeping my eyes open for some yarn that would be good to use for that. Wow, I feel like I've been talking about these projects for a really long time, so I apologize if I'm rambling, but that's my Lento, and I'm gonna go ahead and move on to my next whip. But I do hope to have this done soon. At the rate that I'm going, it'll probably be done, and I've mostly been knitting on this, but I've also been knitting on this next whip, and those have been kind of the ones stealing most of my focus since I finished my socks. Alright, so next up, I have my next whip, and I've been carrying it around in this Petite Knits project bag. I don't know if I've shown this. This is like a little bit of a newer acquisition, but not really an acquisition. I'm not going to talk about every single project bag that I have that I'm using, but I just thought I would mention the ones that I've been carrying around if I hadn't really mentioned them on my channel yet. Okay, so oh my gosh, so much yarn. Okay, so this next whip is a gift knit. I really I like the idea of knitting, like gift knitting for people. I just feel like I never know what to get people, and I feel like when you make something for someone, it's just like that much more personal, and I don't know, you know? I just feel like it's something I enjoy doing. I wanted to knit my dad something for his birthday, and I was asking him, you know, what kind of yarn, like what kind of fabric would you want for like a sweater, or, you know, what kind of things, you know, would you wear like knitted garment wise? And he was like, you know, I don't really wear sweaters, and, you know, I'm gonna knit him, I haven't cast it on yet, but I'm gonna knit him a hat. That wasn't really for his birthday, it was just for me to like have more things to knit, honestly. And he really wanted just like the acrylic yarn because he thought wool would be too warm. So he's not really like a knitwear person, I guess. I have plans to like convert him. I'll make him something really nice, and he'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, and he'll want more. But like him and my brother, they don't really wear knitted things, and yeah, so I was kind of bummed out because I'm like, well, there goes my plan of like knitting people a bunch of gifts. But then when I was on the Purl Soho website buying the other yarn for my Lento, I saw that they were doing a Prism blanket cowl, and I thought that would be really cool to join. And they were also having 20% off their wool yarn that the pattern calls for. So I thought, hey, I can get a discount on the yarn, and I was originally looking to make myself a blanket, but when I was looking at their bundles, they had a bundle called the Candlelight bundle, and it is the perfect colors for the University of Washington. And my dad is an alumni of University of Washington, and he's also a huge Husky football fan. So I am knitting him the Prism blanket with these colors. And it's interesting because the colors, I feel like, are variations of, you know, because you know how colleges will sometimes use, like, they'll use the same colors, but they'll use, some years they'll use like lighter ones and then darker ones, and you can kind of, some of them have more of like a retro vintage feel. And so I feel like over the years, like, they've used different purples and different golds, and I feel like the Candlelight bundle had all of the different shades, and I just thought, this is perfect. And I can knit him something for his birthday and actually be able to do a gift knit. And, you know, because that's what I was like, I really just want to knit things for people for their birthdays and for Christmas and stuff like that. So this, am I holding the right side up? Yeah. So this is how it's going so far. The construction of this is kind of interesting, and I had a little bit of trouble wrapping my head around it when I'm joining this second square, because you're joining as you knit it, and it took me a few tries to get it down, and I still feel like it looks a little wonky, but I'm hoping it'll kind of block out and I can kind of weave in the ends maybe to make it look a little bit more seamless. But it was like really hard for my brain to understand how this was supposed to work, but I finally figured it out and now it's flying. Knitting the first like triangles for the first square was so much fun. I had to force myself to put this down and work on my Lento. Not that I didn't want to work on my Lento, but I would start knitting on this and it was like addictive, like, because you just keep, it's so easy, you just keep going, and like, I don't know, it was just such an easy knit. Also, I think another thing that's adding to my joy of knitting this is the needles that I'm using, which I will talk about in the acquisition section. I bought the Lykke Cyrpa needles, and I am obsessed. We'll talk about them later, but I think that's been adding to just me just sitting knitting on this, and not wanting to put it down because it's just it's such a dream to knit. And yeah, I feel like it's slow going, but my dad's birthday is in May, so I have time. And I just think the colors were perfect. It was 20% off. Everything kind of lined up perfectly. So I was like, I meant to do this. The yarn is Purl Soho Good Wool, I believe. Let me I put the ball bands in my cakes to make sure. Yeah, it's Good Wool, which is 100% Andean Highland wool. And I can list all of the colorways down below, but if you want the colorways, if you just look at their Candlelight bundle, it has all of them listed there, and that's what I bought to make it easy on myself. And while I was kind of, you know, I don't know if I want it, because it's, you know, it's a blanket quantity's worth, even 20% off, still pricey amount of yarn, and I was kind of like, I don't know, so I kind of waited on it a couple of days, and while I was waiting, they ended up having a sale on all the Purl Soho yarn, so I didn't even need the like, code for the Prism blanket cal, because everything ended up being 20% off when I ordered it, so that was kind of cool too. But yeah, so that's my last whip, and yeah, I don't know. I will say, I think their tutorial for picking up the stitches as you go was helpful, but also it didn't show them doing the Prism blanket pattern, like step by step. They were just sort of trying to demonstrate the join as you go, or join as you knit. And so like, I understood that part of it, but understanding how it fit into the pattern as a whole was kind of confusing, and I think that they are going to upload their knit night like Zoom thing where I think they demonstrated it or something, but they haven't done it yet, and so I just had to kind of figure it out on my own, and I think I did a pretty good job, but whenever that's uploaded, I'm gonna watch and see if I can learn it a little bit better, because I still feel like I messed it up a little bit, but I think it's fine. So, like my stitches, where is it? My stitches right here. I don't know if you guys can see. They're just a little loose. Maybe it'll block out though. Maybe it'll be fine. And I doubt my dad would even notice it, to be honest. So, yeah. Anywho, I'm gonna put all this back in. I've got the 5 different colors. I've got a cake of each in this project bag. They don't quite fit, but it's good enough. Overflowing slightly, but it works. I think that is all of my whips, and I've talked about them quite a bit. I'm going to grab a sip of water, and then we're going to get into the acquisition section. So this section will also include my future plans. If I have future plans for the yarn that I'm showing, just because I feel like it's easier to talk about it that way. But I am going to start with needles, because, and I really debated putting this in because, I don't know, I feel like needle, like, preferences are so, you know, like, different people are going to prefer different needles, and like, I was kind of like, well, do people really need to know the needles that I have? Does it matter? And I don't want to come off as like that I'm showing them off or anything, but I was also thinking about it, and I was like, I kind of like to know what needles people use, so that if I did have a question about them, I know who to ask, or I could, you know, see what they like to use different types of needles for. So from like an educational standpoint, I'm like, I like to know what needles people are using, and so I ended up deciding I would go ahead and show my needle acquisitions, even though they're a bit excessive. I'm hoping my future podcast won't be this excessive in terms of this amount of things in the acquisitions. Okay, so first of all, like we talked about, I did purchase the Lykke Cyrpa needles. So I was down in Oregon at the yarn shop I was at. They were having a sale on these needles. I've left the ones I haven't gotten into. They're still in the plastic because I'm just going to keep them in there until I reach for them, because they do get that tarnish on them. But the yarn shop was giving away, if you purchased this set, they were giving a free polishing cloth, which was nice, and then there was a little bit of money off. And since it was in Oregon, there was no sales tax for me, so I would have had to pay sales tax had I bought them in Washington. So I decided to go ahead and get them, and also was supporting a local yarn shop, or local to the area yarn shop, and so I thought, you know, I'll just go ahead and get them here. And I'm glad that I did. And the lady at the yarn shop was saying that I don't think she was a knitter, I think she's a crocheter, but her coworker is a knitter, and once she started using the Lykke needles, she never went back to anything else apparently, and the lady was saying that they have a really nice grip to them. And I was talking about with my Chalgu needles, there's no grip on them, which is sometimes great, but for some of the yarn that I've been using, not so great. So I really wanted to try these out because I really like metal needles. I really like my Chalgus. And I still really like wood needles, but I just really found that I really like my Chalgu needles too. And so I wanted something that had a little bit more grip for those yarns that are softer, that just want to fall right off my metal needles. And knitting with the blanket, those needles have been an absolute dream. And I really want to be able to knit sweaters with this needle set. However, these are 5 inches, and so there's no 16-inch cable. And even if you had a 16-inch cable, they're too long to use with it. So I also got the small set, the 3.5-inch ones, the shorties, because I want to be able to knit sweaters with these needles. And sometimes sweater patterns call for a 16-inch for the neckband and for the sleeves. And I just didn't want to be stuck, unable, because I don't want to switch between material, like needle material, within a sweater, within a project, because I feel like my tension would change, and I just want to control that variable. So I got both sets. I actually bought this one later after I had tried this out, and I was like, I love this, so I went ahead and got this one as well, which I haven't used yet because I haven't started a sweater since I've purchased these, but I am obsessed with these so far. I will continue to let you know if that changes or if I become even more obsessed with them, but I'm so glad that I tried them out because they do have that extra grip that my ChiaoGoo needles just don't have, and they're just a dream to work with. I did have to polish the needles with the polishing cloth to get off. They were a little bit, it felt like there was like little bumps on the needles until you polish it off, and I think that's a little bit of the tarnish buildup or whatever. So I polished that right off, and then they were like amazing. So yeah, I'm so thrilled with this purchase, honestly. I'm going to continue to try them out, but I feel like in order to get the most use out of my needles, I need to be able to use them with a 16-inch cord, so that's why I bought both. Do you need both? No. Can you make it work with other ones? Yes, but I had to. And then I also bought these, which are the Knitter's Pride Dreamz, and these are the ones that are a little bit shorter, so they come with the 16-inch cables. Again, I just wanted to have enough 16-inch cables. I found that not all my sets have them, and it wasn't something I was thinking about when I bought those sets, and now that I have them, I just wanted to make sure that I was always going to be covered, and I wanted to try out the Knitter's Pride ones because I do really like that brand. I've used their straight needles quite a bit, and I didn't have any of their circular needles, except for one fixed circular needle that I have, but it's not a size that is in this set, so I thought I'll just go ahead and get this set as well. Again, a little excessive. Did I need them all? No, absolutely not, but I wanted to get them and just try them out, and yeah. And this way I can cast on all the different things and not ever worry about not having the right needles, which I like the idea of having a ton of things cast on all at once because it just makes me feel happy and like I always will have something to work on. Anyways, those are my needles that I've acquired since the last podcast, and I really am on a needle no-buy now. I mean it this time. I don't know what else I would even buy. There's no other ones that I have my eyes set on right now, so I don't think I will be buying any more for a while. Famous last words, I guess, but it's really not that big of a deal. I'm just being a little hard on myself because I wanted to buy some furniture, and now I feel like I have to wait on that a little bit. So, because I bought needle sets that are a little pricey. Okay. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to acquisitions, which I also have a lot of. I already talked about some of them, but there's still a lot to get through, and for some of these I have projects in mind, for other ones I don't, so I'll kind of go through the ones I've already talked about. So I have a sweater quantities worth of the Malabrigo Rios in Reflecting Pool for my Nama pullover, so we already talked about that. Also, again, have the yarn that I was using for my Lento, the Tussock, and the linen quill, which I'm really liking this linen quill, and I was literally just watching Inga today, her most recent podcast. I don't know, did I finish it? I don't think I finished it. I need to go back and watch the rest of it, but she was talking about her half and half triangle wrap, I think is called, from Purl Soho that uses this yarn, and how she's made it quite a few times, and she just has like a bunch of linen quill in the basket that she keeps because it's like her go-to like comfort knit, and I can see why. It is a really nice yarn, and now I'm like, okay, now I need to buy more to knit one of those wraps, but I'm going to not do that until I finish some projects. But anyway, so I did obviously acquire those yarns. And then these are all the yarns for the Prism blankets, just to show you them all in their little hanks. They're actually big hanks, they're quite big. I want to say this is a worsted weight yarn. Could be wrong. I think it's worsted weight, but these are the 5 colors that are in the blanket. So far I've only used 3 of them, and because I've only done, I'm on my 3rd triangle, so, but yeah, so that's that. I think the bundle comes with 2 of each of these. Now I don't know where to like put all this yarn. Just throw it. I'm not throwing it on the ground, I'm throwing it on my armchair. Else, oh, and then during that 20% off, so I got the Prism blanket yarn, I got the Lento yarn, so those 2 blue ones, and I also, while it was 20% off, I also got this Hedgerow yarn. This is the shade Fuchsia Rose, and I had to get this because I kept seeing Meka from Skeins of Dreamz with this yarn. I think I saw a couple, oh, it's got some of the Tussock on it. I saw a couple Instagram posts, I think, that she had done of this yarn, and I saw her talk about her Naima pullover with this yarn, and I was like, I must have this yarn. It is beautiful. I think it's a little darker in person, maybe, than I expected it to be, but it is still so freaking beautiful. I do have a pattern in mind for this, but off the top of my head, I cannot remember what it is. I think unfortunately I am not logged into Ravelry on my phone, so I don't know if I'll be able to. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not sure. I will put it on the screen though, and I'll put a picture. And it's kind of this, if I recall correctly, it's like this really beautiful kind of lace, got a lace pattern too. I don't know what the lace pattern is called, but kind of this all over sort of lacy pattern on it. And it just looks really pretty. And I thought this yarn would work well for it. Or I suppose I could also make a Naima pullover with it as well. But I wanted to try out a different pattern. So there's this. I'm really excited to use it, but I do have one caked up because I did check the gauge for it for the Naima pullover to see if it was a yarn thing instead of a needle thing, but it didn't end up helping, so I have not, I haven't touched it other than that, or, well, I haven't used it other than that. Okay, and then, oh, and then the linen quill, I actually did not get that during the 20% off sale at Purl Soho because I bought it after the fact. And when I bought that yarn, I think to get free shipping, I went ahead, because I heard Rebecca from the Craybea Knitting Podcast talk about this yarn, and I was like, oh, and I think I also, was it Chelsea that was talking about, from the Sunday Knitting Society? I think she was talking about this yarn too. I feel like I saw her talk about it, and then later I saw Rebecca talk about it, and I was like, huh. I never really looked at that yarn. But this is Purl Soho knitting yarn, which is, I agree, such a weird name for, I feel like you can knit with any yarn. But it's 100% merino wool. So I got a sweater quantity worth, probably maybe more than a sweater quantity's worth, in the shade, in the colorway Lark Brown. And I'm really excited to knit something with this. I just feel like, in this lighting with the studio lights, there's almost a greenish undertone to this brown, and I am obsessed. I think it's gonna be really, really beautiful. I bought 7 skeins maybe of it, or 7 or 8 maybe. Anyways, so I kind of maybe overbought, but I also didn't know what pattern I was going to use for this, so I have no future plans for it, or no immediate plans for it. But just adding it to my stash, which I don't really have. Well, now I have a stash, but I didn't used to really have a stash, and I'm kind of working on building up my stash slowly. But I guess I'll go ahead and talk about it now. I really don't have anywhere to put my yarn anymore. I had a little plant stand that I was using as my little yarn holder, but quickly outgrew that. And I also didn't like that it was kind of just open. So, you know, I don't know, I want to kind of close off my yarn just in case the moths try to come for it. I don't know. I really want to there's a cabinet from IKEA that I feel like a lot of crafters have, and I want it, and I know exactly where it's going to go, but I need to kind of clean that room out, so I haven't purchased it yet. And I also wanted to get some bookcases from IKEA for the room that I'm in right now, and I haven't gotten those. And so I just kind of told myself, I was like, no more buying yarn until you have the furniture that you want. And then you can go back to buying yarn. And so I need to do some organization. I need to place the order from IKEA because I'm just going to have it delivered, even though it costs extra because I don't have a car that's big enough, or like a truck or anything that's big enough to get the bookcases that I want. So I was going to have to get them delivered anyways. So I'm just going to get all of it delivered, and so basically I'm on a yarn no buy until I have a place to actually store it, because right now it's just like sitting on my craft table and I can't use the craft table because it's storing my yarn. So kind of a mess in my house right now. I'm trying to get things organized and cleaned up before I buy more yarn. The only exception is if for some reason if I don't get the furniture, like if it takes a while to ship or something like that. I'm not sure why it would, but maybe if they're out of stock or something, and I somehow, if I need yarn to do a specific project and I don't have anything that'll work, then I'm allowed to buy some yarn, but only for like a very specific thing. And I'm really going to ask myself, you know, can I do a different project that I have the yarn for, to try to kind of, you know, but like some of these yarns I want to use with mohair, and so I would need to get a good mohair to go along with them. So I would allow myself to like buy those. I've got some sock yarn. So my mom had some yarn, and when we were down in Oregon, I brought my Swift down and everything, and we were caking up some yarn, and she had one from, it was actually hand dyed from the yarn shop down in Canada Beach, and we decided that I was looking at it and I was like, hey mom, this is sock yarn. Do you want me to knit you some socks with it? And she was like, oh, sure. And so I was looking at it, and this was before I finished my socks. So I didn't realize that I didn't actually need more yarn, but she only had one skein, and I was looking at the label, the ball band for it, and I was like, you know what? We're gonna need more of this yarn if I want to do socks, because the pattern calls for 400 something yards, and this is only 300 something yards. And I didn't, you know, I hadn't put two and two together yet that like, because I'm knitting the smaller sizes, they don't need that much yarn. So I could have made it with just this cake. But while we were down there, went ahead and bought another in the same colorway. These look a little different because this one was bought like probably years ago, and this one is fresh. So definitely not the same dye lots, but that's okay, because this will make one sock, or this will make one pair of socks, and then this can make another pair of socks, and then do something with the leftovers. But for some reason I was like, oh, I don't have enough yarn, so I bought another one before I realized that it didn't need to. But now I can have a pair of socks and she can have a pair of socks, and yeah. So anyway, so this is the Coastal Yarns. It's in the colorway Sneaker Waves. It is their stock yarn. It is 80% merino superwash wool and 20% nylon. And then I also have another hank, like a mini hank of sock yarn that I got. So I ordered the Vessel Stitch Co. stitch marker for, was it January, I think? And I opted to get the set that comes with like the little gift, and I think it usually comes with a mini skein. And so this is from Cashmere and Coconuts. It's hand-dyed yarn. It is such a pretty colorway. It's in the colorway Electric, and this is sock yarn. It's 75%, I'm assuming, wool, and 25 nylon, I'm assuming. It doesn't say, it just says 75/25. And I have to, oh fuck, I have to change the battery in my camera again, but this is 87 yards. And let me show, oh, come on, focus. I just wanted to show you the colorway up close because it's kind of, I feel like, harder to see, but it's really pretty. I have nothing to pair it with right now, but I'm going to keep my eye out for some other sock yarn that I could pair this with. I think it'd be really pretty. Okay, so, sorry, I'm back with a new battery. I hope this is the one that died previously, and I don't think it charged completely. And I still have more yarn to talk about, so I'm hoping we can do this, but I can't find my third battery, which is so weird because I wouldn't have taken it out of this room, but it is nowhere to be seen, so I'm not sure. But I still have more yarn to talk about. So I found some online yarn shops that are probably, I mean, people are probably pretty familiar with them already, but they were new to me. And one of them is, what is it called? The Woolly Thistle, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about, but it was new to me. But it has some yarn that I feel like is harder to get in the States, or it's at least yarn that is from the UK, so slightly harder to get in the States. So I picked up a couple of things from them. I got some more sock yarn. This is the West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. It is 75% wool and 25% nylon. And I really just wanted to try this brand out. I had heard a couple of people talking about it, and it just seemed like a good brand, so I wanted to try some things out. But I think Woolly Thistle only carries their sock yarn. I think this is the brand that I think Rebecca had done her, I think she had done one of her Dorney sweaters in yarn from this brand. I could be totally wrong, but it was like their DK or their worsted weight yarn. And then I think she had also done one of her other designs in that same yarn. And that yarn was not at the Woolly Thistle, otherwise I might have bought it, but I found this really cute yarn, sock yarn, and it's a beautiful color, and I feel like it'll be really fun to knit maybe in the summertime, because it's like very bright, or I might knit it in the spring too, we'll see, but so there's that. And then I also wanted to try out Jamieson and Smith yarn, and so I bought some of these mini skeins. These are, I believe, 25 grams each, and this is the shade. It just has a number. It's 1280 is the number, so like the colorway, or yeah, colorway on it, and it's really beautiful. It's got like a bunch of different like pastel colors in it, I feel like. Let me see if I can, I think it's too blown out on the camera, like it's being washed out, but hopefully you can tell. It's really pretty. So I actually ended up buying a sweater quantity's worth of this. I'm pretty sure this yarn is meant for color work, so I don't know if that was a weird thing to do, to buy a sweater, like a whole sweater quantity's worth, but it's just such a beautiful, like, colorway. I want a sweater that's just completely this colorway. It's really pretty. There's another one that I was eyeing that they were out of, and I really want to get it at some point and also do a full sweater with it. But I would like to pair this with like some mohair. But yeah, this is their, sorry, I don't think I said this, it's their 2-ply jumper weight. So I wanted to try that out. And then, because I have been having some serious woolly knit FOMO, I guess. I really, maybe more like cone FOMO. Like, I really just wanted some yarn cones, and I really wanted to order some from Woolly Knit, but the shipping is insane, which I understand why, but it's crazy. But also, I was doing the math after the fact, and I was like, I probably would have ended up spending about the same with the shipping included because their prices are so good. So I think I should just go ahead and order if I want to from them, because the shipping kind of makes it even out to these other yarn cones that I have purchased. But I decided to go ahead and get, this is from also Jamieson and Smith. I think it's called Shade 3. It's really hard to see, but I think this one on the cone says Shade 3. So it's kind of this blushy light pink. When I got it in person, I was almost worried that it might like wash me out as like a full sweater, but I think it'll maybe probably be fine. And yeah, but I just really wanted a cone of yarn. I really was just getting some FOMO from not having a cone. And I just think that this is really pretty. Would make a beautiful sweater. I want to, you know, hold it together with some mohair or something. And yeah, so I'm excited. But again, this is like another reason I really need to have some storage for my yarn, because I have this cone is just sitting out on the desk and it needs to be put away. So that was my order from Woolly Thistle. And then I also ordered another cone. And I ordered this from Paradise Fibers, I believe. This is a brown sheep cone. This is in the shade Autumn Leaves, I'm pretty sure. Yes. And it is gorgeous. It is stunning. I am so excited to knit something with this. I don't know what I'm going to knit with it other than I want to knit a sweater. But I did order this from... I could have ordered it directly from Brown Sheep, but their website is... It needs an update. It's kind of... It's one of those sites where you're like not even sure if you're on the right site, and it looks a little just ever so sketchy, where you're like, I don't really want to put any of my payment information into this site. And you can't see the colors on the website for some reason. But when I went to look at other retailers, Paradise Fibers had the shades on their website. You could actually look at them. And then I want to say it shipped out from Spokane. So Brown Sheep is in Nebraska, I'm pretty sure. And they had to ship the yarn to Paradise Fibers. But then the Paradise Fibers, when that actually shipped out to me, I'm pretty sure it was from Spokane. So I was like, cool, I found a retailer of Brown Sheep that is somewhat local to me, in the same state at the very least. But even if it is Eastern Washington, not exactly local, but more local than other places. So I thought that was kind of cool when I realized that they were shipping out of there. So I feel like I can buy more cones because I'm not being shipped very far. But when I was kind of doing the math, with the cost of this cone and the cost of the other cone, compared to woolly knit, the cost ends up being around the same when you include the shipping from woolly knit. So I think that gives me permission to buy some woolly knit cones in the future. I'm not going to do it now because, like we talked about, I'm doing a yarn diet, but when I feel like I want some more sweater quantities worth, I'd like to get some more yarn cones. Alright, so I took some of the yarn out of the bag so I didn't have to make you guys listen to the crinkling. So I was going to not buy any more yarn for a little bit and just kind of work with what I had. But then I need to not be on the newsletter from Purl Soho. Am I going to take myself off of it? No, but it's a little dangerous because they have so many sales all the time. They'll like pick a pattern, and the yarn for that pattern, they'll put a sale on for it, and I feel like that's how they get you. They know what they're doing over there. And so I had seen, in their email and on their Instagram and everything, I saw, what is it called? Shoot. Can't remember. Yeah. So it's the eyelet cowl, and they use their spindle yarn for that pattern. And so the spindle yarn was 20% off. And I was looking at that cowl, and I couldn't get over the white and yellow one. I loved that color combination so much. And I kept thinking, like, I would love it in a white, like that white with a neon green as like a pop of color. And so I looked to see if they had a neon green in the spindle, and they don't. But I was looking at the yellow again though, and I was like, it's really pretty, and I feel like I would also like the yellow, kind of yellow, almost like a golden white. So I did buy the yarn to do the larger size of the cowl, with the yellow and the white, and then I was looking at it and I was like, but also, also I feel like my mom would like this as well, and her birthday is also coming up, and I'm knitting my dad a blanket, so I'm like, I should knit something for my mom too. And so I bought the blue to go, so I bought 4 skeins of the white, 2 of the blue, and 2 of the yellow. So I'm going to be knitting 2 of those cowls. I figure I will do mine first to like practice it and make sure I got it down, and then I'll make hers for her birthday. And I feel like she'll really enjoy this color combination. I feel like she has a lot of blues that would look really, that she could wear and color coordinate and all of that. And so I just thought this would be cute. I thought it would be really pretty and really fun to knit, and also, Purl Soho really gets me with those emails. I need to not read them. But if I didn't get the emails, I would just see it on Instagram and same thing would happen. So they need to give their marketing team a raise, I think. I also need to stop buying so much. But that's all of my yarn acquisition for this period of time, which is a longer period since I think I went more like 3 weeks without filming an update or another episode. So I don't know. I feel like there's more room in there to have more acquisitions for yarn. But now I'm officially on a yarn diet, and I don't believe I have any more packages on their way. So I'm going to work on the projects that I have going on, and the other ones that I have the plans for, and then once I get my yarn cabinet and my bookcases, and I can start kind of organizing my house a little bit better, that's when I will allow myself to buy some more yarn. So yes, I feel pretty good about that, and I am not going to be buying any more needles. I truly mean it this time, I think, because I don't think there's any other ones that I even have my eyes on. So because I spent so much time talking about my whips and my acquisitions, I want to kind of wrap this up and not do any more segments for this episode. But I did want to mention I have started reading The Vampire Knitting Club by Nancy Warren, and I'm not very many chapters in, but so far I'm really enjoying it. It's very cozy with her being in a knitting shop, and it's like a cozy murder mystery, and I just thought I would mention the book. My friend Megan actually told me about it when we realized we were both into knitting, and we started talking about our knitting, and then she was like, hey, have you ever read this? And I was like, no, I didn't even know that was a genre. I didn't know there was a cozy murder mystery genre. But I'm really excited to continue reading it, and it's like a whole series, and I'm very, very excited. So I just wanted to mention that in case anyone has read it or would be interested in reading it, if you want to read along with me. That would be fun. But yeah, I just figured I would mention that's what I'm currently reading, or at least one of the books I'm currently reading, and I've been liking it so far. Again, I'm not very far into it, but I plan on remedying that tonight and reading a huge chunk tonight before bed. So, anyways. I'll go ahead and leave it there though for this podcast episode, since I'm pretty sure, since I had to change the battery twice, that it's a pretty long one. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this episode. For those of you who have been subscribing to my channel recently, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining, and I hope you're enjoying the podcast episodes. Let me know what you're currently working on, whether it's knitting or crocheting or whatever craft or project you are working on. I would love to hear about it. If you did enjoy this episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up before you go. Other than that, I hope you have a fantastic day. Happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy crafting, happy writing, happy whatever it is that you do. And I hope to see you back here for my next podcast episode. Bye!
Alright, this is a song that I wrote about falling too fast, but I wouldn't know anything about that.
I don't wanna lose my grounding, so you catch me not responding. And I press my lips together so you don't find any answers.